Welcome, I'm Catherine Hadro, and this is EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. Supreme Court front and center. We have President Trump's list of potential justice nominees. Should Joe Biden reveal who's on his list too? Expert analysis about one of the most critical issues in the 2020 presidential election.
People were saying, wait a minute, do they really kill babies? I said, hey, it's called infanticide.
A Super Bowl champ on what's dividing America. Former NFL star Benjamin Watson talks about his new film, a must-see about the abortion debate. And ice in hot water. A whistleblower complaint sounds the alarm at an immigrant detention center. If true, why are so many women held at the ICE facility undergoing sterilization procedures? We speak out. President Donald Trump has added 20 names to the list of Supreme Court candidates he's pledged to choose from if he has future vacancies to fill. This as the Supreme Court continues to be a central issue for the 2020 U.S. presidential election. Exit polling from the 2016 presidential election indicated the #1 reason Americans voted for Trump was the Supreme Court. Trump is hoping to repeat that strategy this November. Last week, the president announced he's adding 20 names to a list of Supreme Court candidates he's pledged to choose from, should a high court seat become available.
Radical justices will erase the Second Amendment, silence political speech, and require taxpayers to fund extreme late-term abortion. They will unilaterally declare the death penalty unconstitutional, even for the most depraved mass murderers.
Given this is his 4th Supreme Court list, that brings the total number of remaining possible Supreme Court candidates Trump would choose from to 44. The latest list of 20 includes 3 senators, Ted Cruz of Texas, Tom Cotton of Arkansas, and Josh Hawley of Missouri. Hawley, who's already removed his name from consideration, appeared on EWTN Pro-Life Weekly last month to discuss his Roe v. Wade litmus test for Supreme Court nominees.
I want to hear that they understand that Roe v. Wade was an act of judicial imperialism. It's wrongly decided. It represents the day that the modern Supreme Court decided to say that they'll just make up the law and they won't even try to ground it in the Constitution or in the laws that Congress wrote.
There's another name on Trump's new list who's also been a guest on the show. Sarah Pitlik, now a U.S. district judge, appeared last year as senior counsel to the Thomas More Society to discuss the president's pro-life, protect life rule.
There's very good historical evidence also that this is a reasonable application of the Title X statute and its prohibition on the use of funds in that way.
In a letter to pro-life leaders this month, Trump reiterates he will fill, quote, the Supreme Court and lower courts with judges who will respect the Constitution and not legislate an abortion agenda from the bench. Trump has called on Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden to release his own Supreme Court list. So far, that challenge has gone unanswered, but Biden has indicated at least one aspect of his judicial vision. While speaking at a Planned Parenthood event last year, Biden said he would support making Roe v. Wade permanent law. For analysis, we are now joined by our panel via Skype. Amy Howe is the co-founder of SCOTUS blog. She's served as counsel in over a dozen merits cases at the Supreme Court, argued 2 cases there, and has taught both at Stanford Law, Harvard Law, among other universities. And Marilyn Musgrave is a former U.S. representative for the state of Colorado, who now serves as the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Susan B. Anthony list. Welcome to you both. Congresswoman, first, as a pro-life leader, are there names that stand out to you on this list? The Susan B. Anthony list says it's filled with all-stars.
Oh, it is filled with all-stars. And candidate Trump made history in 2016 when he released the list. That had never happened before. And now we have even more information on those he would nominate. I have to tell you that when I heard Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron speak at the Republican National Convention, I was very impressed. he spoke, he gave a warning that under a Biden presidency, countless children would lose their lives, unborn children would lose their lives. I'm also very impressed with Sarah Pitlik that you mentioned just now from Missouri, and Lawrence Van Dyke. It is filled with all-stars. These people have great knowledge and expertise and are highly qualified to be on the court.
Amy, prior to 2015 and Donald Trump's first Supreme Court list, presidential candidates did not generally release specific names of potential Supreme Court nominees. From your perspective, how significant is this, and do you see this as a new norm for the future?
It's a really interesting question. It may not be a new norm, as evidenced by the fact that Joe Biden hasn't done it yet, but perhaps on the Republican side, where the Supreme Court has been an issue for voters consistently. Republicans have always put a premium on voting because of the Supreme Court. It certainly, I think, helped back in 2016 having the list to convince voters that Donald Trump would, in fact, put conservative judges and justices on the bench if he were to be elected. And so I do think it could very well be something that at least Republican presidential candidates could do in the future.
Congresswoman, your group is attempting to reach 7 million voters by Election Day. Based on your interaction with Americans on the grassroots level, how important is the Supreme Court issue to them? What are you hearing?
Well, it's very important to them. And not only are they motivated to vote because of this issue, they're encouraging their friends and family to vote because of this issue. And I think the recent betrayal by Justice Roberts on the Louisiana admitting privileges case made people realize we do need to reelect Donald Trump so that we can have more assurance that the courts will have judges that respect the Constitution. So it's very important to them. That's why we're reaching out to all of these voters, reaching over 7 million homes.
Amy, can we predict how a Supreme Court justice might rule on the issue of abortion given their judicial history?
It's hard. I mean, they call it the Ginsburg rule after Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. When the nominee comes to the Senate Judiciary Committee and is asked about issues like abortion, they frequently decline to answer questions on the ground that the issue is likely to come before them. And so you have to look at what they've done in the past, and depending on what they've written, where they've been a judge, you may not know much about them. And so, with Justice Neil Gorsuch, for example, I don't think that he had really any abortion cases at all. We were scouring his views on euthanasia to try and figure out how he might vote on abortion cases. So it's difficult, but the president, I think, is quite confident. He has promised to appoint judges and justices who will vote to overturn Roe versus Wade. And, I think that he, as Marilyn said, I think that he has probably put 2 justices on who are likely to do that. And I think that that's really why he wanted to release this list as a reminder in the upcoming election that his work in appointing justices to overrule Roe versus Wade isn't done, that they need a 5th justice to do that.
Congresswoman, from your perspective as a former lawmaker on Capitol Hill, what should pro-lifers expect if President Trump is reelected, but the Senate has a pro-abortion majority? While the president nominates the justices, it is up to the Senate to confirm them.
Absolutely. He nominates, they confirm, and we saw what happened to Brett Kavanaugh in those hearings. And some of us remember very clearly what happened to Clarence Thomas through the hearings. So it's well known that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats will adamantly oppose any nominee that the president would put forward. I think of the work that the United States Senate has done, over 200 judges on the bench, 2 Supreme Court justices. That is the legacy of this president. We must reelect him and have a pro-life majority in the United States Senate so that this could continue for the sake of posterity, our children and our grandchildren. So those 7 million contacts that we hope to have motivate people to vote because of this very issue, the future of the courts.
Amy, real quick, do you expect Joe Biden will release his own list?
I have not seen any sign that he will. He has said that if he were elected, he would appoint a black woman. So that, probably narrows the field of candidates quite a bit. But I have not seen any sign that he's likely to release his own list. And there's not a lot of time left between now and the November election.
That's right. Well, Amy Howe and Marilyn Musgrave, thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Good to be with you, Catherine.
Earlier this month, President Trump recommitted to pro-life leaders that he would fill the Supreme Court and lower courts with judges who respect the Constitution and do not legislate an abortion agenda from the bench. Just last week, the president released his latest list of high court candidates he's pledged to choose from, should a future seat open up in his term. Prominent pro-life leaders have applauded that list, and that brings us to this week's call to action. Go to prolifeweekly.com to thank President Trump for this latest Supreme Court list. The pro-life group, the Susan B. Anthony list, says this list of candidates, quote, reflects the president's firm and proven commitment to only nominating Supreme Court justices who will respect the Constitution and the inalienable right to life. Send a thank you to the president by going to prolifeweekly.com.
When does a person get rights?
When does a person get rights? When a person is a person.
When is a person a person?
And that's the thing. When a child is born, then the child is a child.
If we look at the history of abortion laws, it's always been predicated on when a human's life begins.
That is a clip from the new documentary, Divided Hearts of America. The film's executive producer, former NFL player Benjamin Watson, interviews more than 30 Americans with opinions on abortion all over the political spectrum. The documentary is released this week on September 17th. Joining us now via Skype is the executive producer of Divided Hearts of America, former Super Bowl champion and NFL tight end Benjamin Watson. Benjamin, welcome to the show and congratulations on the release of your film. You conducted more than 30 interviews with Americans who hold a variety of views on abortion. What did you learn after all those interviews and putting together this film?
Well, thanks for having me. This film was a labor of love, but we live in an America that is greatly divided on this issue. It's no secret that for the last 30 years, abortion opinions in America, being pro-choice or pro-life, have been pretty much split down the middle. And so my hope, my goal was to talk to people from different sides of the spectrum. And I learned that there's a lot of complexity. I've also learned that a lot of people are greatly hurt, not only by the act of abortion, but they're hurt by the way we talk to each other about the act of abortion and about its legality. We call names, we don't have much empathy. And so my goal was to set forth on this journey to really figure out how we got here, where are we going, what happens if we don't change course, but how we can collectively, as Americans, seek to come to some sort of togetherness, or at least understanding on this most important issue of sanctity of life.
Absolutely. And you are pro-life, but in Divided Hearts of America, as you said, you engage with people who disagree with you about abortion. But say you are looking for empathy on both sides. Benjamin, how do you bring this much needed empathy to this debate without compromising truth on the life issue?
See, now we think, unfortunately, we think that we cannot care about someone else without shunning them. And there are a lot of people that are hurt by that in our churches, in this issue, as I mentioned before. And so I wish I could have talked to so many more people with different views, but we only have a certain amount of time in the film. But the way we do it is by loving each other. Our love has to be in action. And that action is not concerned with what we've done in our past. We all know that we're saved by the blood of Jesus Christ. We all understand that. And because of that, we can act out in a way that is forgiving, that is restoring to people, no matter what they've done. And we don't compromise truth. We never compromise the fact that Scripture says over and over again that He knew us in our mother's womb. And all those things are vitally important. And I do come from a stance of wanting to affirm life. I also want to come from a stance of presenting information. I didn't want this documentary to be propaganda, but it is purposeful in presenting stories, presenting history, presenting political legislation, presenting facts having to do with this most important topic, and wanting people to walk away from it, honestly, maybe thinking about this whole subject differently, but also feeling different about how they are going to engage with those who this affects, which is everybody in this country right now.
Absolutely. I want us to take a listen to another part of the trailer for your film, Divided Hearts of America. Let's take a listen.
It's important that as African Americans that we truly understand the history of abortion.
In New York City, the home of Planned Parenthood, for decades more black babies have been aborted than born alive. For decades.
Abortion is targeting Black America. That's not an accident. That's genocide.
Ben, how does your documentary address the disproportionate rate of abortion within the African American community?
Well, we couldn't have a robust discussion on abortion without looking at the statistics. And the statistics overwhelmingly disproportionately affect African Americans. And so the question therein is why. A lot of people quote those stats, no matter if they're black, if they're white, or they're in between. They quote those stats, but a lot of times we never get to the why. And I wanted to get to the why. And so we talk about the history, the legacy, a lot of which many people know. But we also talk about what are the things that are happening right now in communities that affect these decisions. How can we better support? How can we better provide? How can we better encourage? What's our role individually as well as institutionally when it comes to addressing this statistic and not just talking about it?
To that point, Ben, how can the pro-life movement better engage and involve the African American community?
Well, history shows that the African American community is just as much pro-life, if not more, when it comes from a religious perspective, than the broader majority community, if you want to call that the white community. I hate even using those terms because there's so many different increments between all these communities. There's no monoliths when we talk about people groups. And so just understanding that, there are complexities there. We never want to paint people with a broad brush. We never want to totally condemn people without hearing their stories. So we be inclusive as a pro-life community. For me, people a lot of times ask, when did you become pro-life? And I always felt like it was a justice issue. And so whether you call yourself pro-life or not, the issue of protecting vulnerable people at any stage of life has to be important to all of us. This is a justice issue. That's how we can include everybody in it.
Ben, you are the father of 7, including of baby twins. You made that announcement in the most epic touchdown back in 2018. I think we even have video of that here. Ben, can you just speak to your personal experience about being a father, being open to life, and really the beauty of children?
Yeah, the Bible says repeatedly in the book of Psalms that children are a gift from the Lord. It says that they're like arrows in the hand of a warrior. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. And I don't know quite how many a quiver is, but my junk is pretty full at this point with 7 kids. And we also experienced heartache. We lost 2 children before the twins. We had 2 miscarriages, something we hadn't experienced. And to those who've experienced that, they know the pain, the silent pain a lot of times that comes with that. And so in going through that, I think we really had a real appreciation for the gift of life. Not that we didn't before with our first 5, but when you experience a loss like that, and then you come back and you have identical twin boys, they're 16 months old right now, it just gives you a new sense of how precious life is and how we have to protect it. Look, children are tough. I'm not going to sit here and say as a dad that every single day I'm happy-go-lucky and the kids don't get on my nerves. They do. But at the end of the day, they truly are a blessing.
That's beautiful. And Ben, in this year of COVID, movie theaters are struggling to stay open, and many Americans are weary of stepping foot in a theater. So can you briefly share how can people view your film?
Yeah, our idea was hopefully to go to theaters. Obviously, with COVID-19, that's not a possibility on a large scale. So we are going to be streaming starting September 17th, this Thursday on Salem Now. People can go to Salem Now and pre-order actually right now to reserve their spot to watch the film. We're going to be streaming for the next several months, so that's how you can check it out.
That is incredible. And finally, just briefly while we have you, I know you've spoken at the March for Life before, and the March for Life just announced last week that the 2021 theme is Together Strong, Life Unites. Do you see an opportunity for America to come together on the life issue?
I do. I think it's a must for America. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. It's one of our tenets. It's in our founding document. And that does mean all life. And so it's imperative that we as Americans uphold life, that we fight for it. And that's life in the womb, that's life outside the womb and beyond, for sure.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And for our viewers, for more information about Ben Watson's pro-life documentary released this week, go to dividedheartsofamericafilm.com. Benjamin Watson, executive producer of Divided Hearts of America. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, shocking allegations from a whistleblower alleging mass hysterectomies at an ICE detention center. A nurse inside the facility says it wasn't clear whether immigrant women fully understood what was happening to them. More details and ICE's response to the report when we return. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Catherine Hadro. U.S. Immigration and Customs and Enforcement declines to comment on allegations that hysterectomies were performed on detained immigrant women without their full consent. That is this week's Speak Out segment. News outlet Law and Crime reported Monday that a whistleblower complaint was filed last week with the Office of Inspector General at the Department of Homeland Security, which included testimony from immigrants at a Georgia ICE detention center and a nurse at the center. The complaint alleges immigrant women were there, underwent hysterectomies at an extraordinarily high rate. A hysterectomy is the surgical removal of a woman's uterus. One detainee likened the detention center's conditions to an experimental concentration camp. Women there were reported to be confused about the procedure they received. In a statement to our news partner, Catholic News Agency, ICE gives a no comment, saying, quote, ICE does not comment on matters presented to the Office of the Inspector General, which provides independent oversight and accountability within the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. ICE takes all allegations seriously and defers to the OIG regarding any potential investigation and/or results. ICE continued, saying, that said, in general, anonymous, unproven allegations made without any fact-checkable specifics should be treated with the appropriate skepticism they deserve. A few things to first acknowledge. This is a developing story that has come out with fewer than 50 days until a U.S. presidential election. We are clear-eyed on that and have a journalistic responsibility to investigate this, to verify this, to stay on top of this story. That being said, we want to be on the record to say if this is true, this is an evil attack on human life that cries out for justice. To take away a woman's uterus without her full consent, to sterilize her, is a gross violation that strips her of her ability to carry a child in her womb and is an abuse of human rights. The fact that immigrant women are allegedly being targeted is particularly disturbing and reminiscent of eugenics. Please know we are going to continue to monitor and look into these allegations. In the meantime, let us pray for our immigrant brothers and sisters, call out for more clarity and information, and speak out against any allegation of forced sterilization, whether it's happening in communist China or in our own backyard. A group inspired by St. John Paul II is aiming to restore a culture of life in times of COVID and isolation. The Culture Project is hosting Restore Culture virtual workshops next weekend, September 25th through the 27th. The workshops are aimed towards people in all walks of life, from married to single, from parents to students, and will tackle topics ranging from reproductive health issues to theology of the body. Presenters include Catholic speakers like Sarah Swafford, Father Gregory Pine, and Jason Ever, among others. For this week's Pro-Life Focus, we're joined by Cristina Barba Whalen, the president of the Culture Project. She joins us now via Skype. Cristina, welcome back. For viewers hearing about your group for the first time, can you give us a brief introduction to the Culture Project?
Sure, Catherine. Thanks so much for having me. The Culture Project is a movement and initiative of young adult lay Catholics that believe in love and are sick and tired of what the world is offering us. So we are young adults that take a year at a time commitment to live in community, pray, receive formation, and then to go out and to share what we have learned and to invite other young people to live a life of virtue. We're spread out throughout the country with different hub cities and have missionaries going into high schools, parishes, middle schools, and virtual classrooms too.
It's a beautiful witness. Cristina, what are the challenges that you're hearing that people are facing in isolation right now? And why is it important then to speak about topics like theology of the body at this virtual workshop to people who might be feeling overwhelmed and isolated?
You know, Catherine, I think more than ever, people are feeling completely and totally isolated, and they're forgetting what normal life looks like and normal human responses and interactions, and people just need a human connection. So first of all, they need a human connection, and then they need to hear from other people that are similar to them, that are just like them, that understand the struggles that they are going through, but that aren't okay to settle with kind of being victims, you know, like being a victim of 2020 or a victim of the current situation, but people that are actually striving to live this time virtuously and to go deeper. So we're hoping that actually that minds and hearts will be touched, but not just minds and hearts, that you're actually going to feel driven towards action after attending this conference and actually maybe living some things differently in your own life and reaching out to the community around you.
Speaking of action, Cristina, what are practical ways our viewers can continue to build up a culture of life in this time of COVID and isolation?
Well, you know, I think it's really simple, building community as best as you can. Mm-hmm. So even if that means, you know, you're limited in your interactions and things you can do with other people, pick up the phone, you know, catch up with an old friend, get on Skype, get on Zoom, get on Google Hangouts. Do what you can to really reconnect and to build community and to remind people and yourself, starting with yourself and others, that we're made for great things, and this will pass. This crisis will pass, and we still have work to be done. Like, there is a lot of work to be done right now, and we have to do everything we can to be the best versions of ourselves and to keep fighting for life and beauty and for love and goodness in this time.
Absolutely. That's so inspiring, and viewers can learn more about next weekend's event by going to restoreculture.com. Cristina Barba Whalen, thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine. Hope you all can join us.
Absolutely. Thank you. That does it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. Until next time, we'd love to hear from you. Find us on social media at EWTN Pro-Life on all social media platforms. We're there. You can also send us a message by emailing prolifeweekly@EWTN.com. We'd love to hear from you. Remember, life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.